Alright, so last year American football released their eagerly awaited second LP, the first thing they've released since 1999, their first LP. I'm jumping straight into this, acknowledging that I haven't heard any of the vocalist projects since I've heard a lot of people compare the two works, so I kind of want to use this video as more of a comparison between the second LP and the first LP, rather than comparing it to something that isn't American football related at all.
Listen to this.
First thing I noticed when I listened to this album for the first time is that the tech definitely followed them through the years. The sound is a lot more crisper, but I feel like it lost some of the homely aesthetic that the first album provided. Everything sounds a little less honest in the fact that I'm pretty sure they recorded the first album in a room, just them playing, and with this album, you know, everything's quantized, everything's perfected, and that sounds great on paper, but it does kind of sound a little less than genuine when you compare it to the first LP. Listening to this album on vinyl does add a lot of warmth to it compared to the Flax I bought originally, but it still sounds less than honest when you compare it to the first LP, which just really envelops your entire being in sound. With this one, you know, crisp highs, everything sounds perfect, there's layers upon layers of guitar tracks, it's brilliant, but, you know, it doesn't sound like an American football album to me. It just sounds like something new completely, which is very good, don't get me wrong, but I was kind of expecting something as homely as the first LP, which did let me down a little bit when I listened to it for the first time. Second thing I noticed about this album is how much more centered around vocals and lyricism this album is. I loved this in the sense that they didn't lose their love for metaphors, but they're a lot easier to stomach in this album and a lot easier to understand than in the first album. Each song title matches the first line of the song, which I found kind of cheesy at first, but it is a very easy way to remember the song titles, especially when you're listening to the album on a medium where you can't immediately access the song titles until you pull it out and look in the back and figure out which, oh, this is the second song of the second side, let's look, oh, it's called Give Me the Gun, when, you know, you listen to the album and it falls on the fucking ground. Almost every line in this album vocally is backed with a major third harmony, which builds an entire new sound to the band previously unheard of in their old work. And, you know, while the use of oddly metered 6/8 polyrhythms and trumpets in their sound remains, the one thing this album lacked for me was the heartbreaking instrumental tracks that LP1 provided. Every song on this album has lyrics, which sounds kind of odd when you say it like that, but the instrumental tracks were some of my favorites. The one with the Wurlitzer on LP1 was easily my favorite song in LP1. However, instrumental tracks aren't for everybody, and that's why I think compared to LP1, if you've never heard American football before, I think this would be a better album to start with. Also, if you're not particularly musically inclined, I think this would be an easier album to stomach, and it's definitely an easier album to market over the kind of niche market that you had to kind of aim for with LP1. It's a really easy album to just put on and enjoy in the background while maintaining the complex theoretical undertones that you might want to explore and kind of listen for if you are so musically inclined. The vibe of this album seems a little more melancholy to me than meets the ear at first listen. Every time you listen to LP2, something new jumps out at you and crushes your heart a little bit, rather than the instant emotional gratification that you get from LP1. You can definitely tell it's the same band when you listen to a few of the elements such as the odd-timed snare and the trumpets and the layers upon layers of guitar. It's definitely the same band, and you can definitely tell that it's more of an evolution of sound rather than a completely new sound in general. So while this is an evolution of sound, I feel like this album brings a lot of new things to the table that we didn't hear in the last album, and I feel like this album doesn't get the respect it deserves, and it was dismissed very quickly by critics across the board, and I don't think it deserves those low ratings at all. Personally, I would give American football's LP2 a higher rating than LP1 if I didn't have the emotional, nostalgic connection to LP1, because that's all I listened to in high school, like early high school days, that's all I listened to there. So once I listened to that album, it transports me back to a million different places. This album transports me back to last year, like late last year, so that has that going for it, but musically speaking, I definitely think LP2 is a more sound piece of art than LP1. Regardless of the two being worlds apart, I definitely think that this album is worth picking up and enjoying, you know, whether you're working and you need some background noise, or if you set up your audiophile rig like me and analyze each polyrhythm. I feel like with enough time to adjust, American football's second LP is a marvelous work of art, enjoyable by the musically minded and laymen alike. You can download the entire album for just $1 from their Bandcamp, which is ridiculous. That's why I jumped on it the second I could. Or you can buy the physical copy through Polyvinyl Records. It's orange. If you want an orange record, this is the one to get. Also, while we're here, I thought I'd mention the fact that I did an entire cover of I've Been So Lost for So Long, which I think is the first track of the second side, if you base your track listings like I do. I did an entire cover of that, mixed and mastered by Samuel James Atherton. And I've put that on my SoundCloud if you want to go check that out. I'll put a link in the bottom. And other than that, definitely check out American Football's second LP because it's brilliant. And I'll see you next time.